Hi, welcome to the Myriad Yoga Podcast. I'm Marta.
And I'm Zoe.
This is our first round of this podcast. We're super excited to film this episode. We also don't have a very clever name yet, so it's the Myriad Yoga Podcast this week.
I think that's a great name.
Thank you. I came up with it 2 seconds ago. So we're super excited to bring this podcast to you all. Here at Myriad Yoga, we go through monthly theming every month. We kind of have some new things that we switch focus on, and we'd like to use this podcast as an opportunity to talk about those themes together and with you to just give some different perspective and maybe a little more in-depth conversation than what you might get in a yoga class. So this month at Myriad Yoga, we're talking about
reflection.
Yes, reflection. So much more than just like the light reflecting off your gorgeous face and blinding you with your beauty. Tell us more about reflection, Zoe. What is reflection? What is self-reflection specifically?
That's a great question. So I really like this. I'm going to give you credit because you use this metaphor. But think about reflection, like as you're looking in a mirror, you're observing yourself, like on a physical level. You're able to see all of your features and everything about yourself. So we're taking that idea, but then plugging it into our mental and emotional and spiritual states. So we're taking those observations, but drawing them inward. So then comes in self-reflection. So that's how you do that. Do you have anything more to say on that, like what it is, I guess?
Yeah. So thank you for crediting my mirror analogy. So yeah, self-reflection, we're like looking back at ourselves on many different levels. And what I like to think about with that mirror analogy is I love using myself as an example when I talk about things because we're just humans and we're here teaching yoga and talking about yoga, but also like trying really hard every day and making a lot of mistakes because that's part of being human. But when I look at myself in a mirror when I'm at my house, I'm kind of obsessed with looking in the mirror, I'll be honest. And I'm a person who gets really obsessive about certain things when I look in the mirror. So I'm definitely like an anxiety face picker and prodder and judger. I will look in the mirror and find 100 different things wrong with myself and immediately start attacking. Like, where are my tweezers? Where are all of my many skincare products? Like, what can I attack on my face? And that's not a very kind way to interact with myself. So when we think about that in terms of self-reflection too, it's like we look in the mirror at ourselves. So we're looking at those deeper, more subtle layers beyond just the physical level. So you can think about like thoughts, emotions, the choices that we make in our life, the actions that we take. And rather than looking at them and immediately starting to attack them with judgment, being like, I have to fix all of these things right away, when we self-reflect, we try to remove that piece from it and just notice everything. In yoga, we talk a lot about like pulling back to the 30,000 foot view. So we're just kind of looking at it and observing and sitting with it rather than immediately trying to attack or judge or fix every single thing that we see.
Right. Beautifully said. You obviously have some experience with this.
Thanks. I think it's something we all do, like whether it's with our physical appearance or, walking around with guilt and shame of decisions or conversations that we've had. Have you ever had a conversation that you're thinking about 5 weeks later for some reason and probably no one else remembers the conversation?
All the time. Sometimes I think about something I did in 5th grade.
Right. So that's self-reflection with a little bit of guilt or shame attached.
Yeah.
So it's all about trying to remove those things from your practice and finding healthy ways to self-reflect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know you're a person who does a lot of self-reflection. It's a big part of your life. And you do it through a lot of different practices and modes. So what are some healthy ways that you like to self-reflect?
I love that. Okay. Yeah, so there are lots of different ways that you can approach self-reflection, and it doesn't have to be one specific practice that's the same all the time, which is really beautiful about it. So one way that we can do it is through reading. I have like various reading materials that I like that invoke those self-reflective thoughts. Would you like to hear about some of them?
Yeah. Do you have some right off?
I do. I have some recommendations.
Well, that's great, because I can't ever remember book titles. So please share with us. What do you like?
So Young Pueblo, he has 3 different books. The first one that he did is called Inward. I think that one is probably like, if you are diving into self-reflection, that's the one that you probably want to get. It invoked so much thought in me that I was like, I've never really thought about that before or in that way. There are all these like short passages that just help you connect deeper to yourself, but also like have more compassion for yourself too while you're doing that. So I would say that one. He has 2 other ones too. One is called Clarity and Connection. And that one is about self-reflection, but also about our relationships and how that affects our relationship and communication with others.
And I really love that, because sometimes in yoga we can get really like stuck on just looking at ourselves and like the things that we do, but not always the way that we're connecting with other people. And we spend a lot of our life with other people.
Yes, and I feel like that's a big reason to self-reflect, is so that you can show up better in your relationships and your connections with other people. Because the more we observe ourselves, the more we can have, that same compassion that we might experience for ourselves for others.
Yeah, love that.
So those are a couple of books, I would say. But writing too, sometimes I will read a passage and then I like to just take a moment and think if there are any thoughts coming up or any emotions or just anything I'm experiencing while reading that, if it invoked anything. And then I like to put that on paper. Not required, but it feels really nice, and you can refer back to that too. And I feel like it can help the practice stick.
Do you have like a special journal? Do you have a specific type of journal you like?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, but you can get special journals that have like prompts in them too for self-reflection. That, unfortunately, I don't have a recommendation for.
Okay.
Sorry
What
about
kind of pen do
that,
you
but I love the Inkjoy pens, the Papermate ones. I have one
those are
in
nice.
every color.
Yeah.
And so I do like to, depending on my mood or how I'm feeling, I write with different colors, and I think that can be fun.
That is really nice. I also don't use a specific journal, but I will say when I do journal, because it's not a natural practice for me, the thing that helps me out is setting a timer. So I usually will set timers for myself. It's just like 2 or 3 minutes. Do not set a 10-minute timer if you're not a normal journaler. But then it's a reminder for me to like pen to paper, free write, just whatever comes into my brain, just let it flow out. So it's not even always sentences. It's just kind of like whatever is scribbling out of my mind.
Yeah.
And that's helpful for me because I'm journaling, I find to be really challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Setting a time limit for it. I've never done that before. I should probably take on that practice because I too will be like, I really want to write, but then I will like stop and I'll be like, I feel like I should be writing more than that, But if you set that timer for yourself, then that eliminates some of that and the overthinking that might come with writing. So that's really beautiful.
And the worry that it's going to like take a bunch of your time, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be this really long time consuming process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What other ways do you like to use what other modes of self-reflection do you participate in?
Yeah, so I'm a tarot reader, and so tarot cards are definitely a way that I self-reflect also. It can be a great tool for self-reflection that I feel like people sleep on. Anyone can read tarot also. Like, you don't have to like be someone who reads for other people.
You don't have to have magic powers.
No, I don't even have magic powers. I just use my intuition. But yeah, you can do it for yourself. There's actually a really great book called Tarot by Tina Gong, and she has really detailed interpretations of the cards that I feel like invoke that deeper self-reflection also. And plus, like, you don't have to know the cards either that way too. I think tarot can feel not approachable sometimes because there's so many cards, and so it goes really in depth with all of the different meanings and interpretations that you can have, but you don't have to be an expert. You don't even really have to know much about it at all, and you can still use it as a tool. I'd recommend getting a book like that, though, over reading the little booklets that come with the decks, because I feel like often they're like one sentence, and it's like, something bad's gonna happen to you tomorrow. And
let me tell you, I have 2 tarot decks, and like 10 years ago, when I was really bent on learning tarot, I got the decks and read the little books, and the only things in my mind were like this little book that's not helpful, and then every movie or like thing I've ever seen, watched, heard that's like, tarot is mystical, and like there's all this crazy symbolism in it, and I was like, I can't make sense of any of it.
yeah, well, you're not alone in that. A lot of people feel that similar way, which is why I feel like people think it's not approachable, but I think it's a great tool for self-reflection. But 2, there's also oracle decks, so tarot is universal. It's always, I guess there are different types of tarot, but the Solabusca tarot, it's the same 78 cards, but there are also oracle decks that, lots of different intuitives and artists have created, and they're all like themed decks that you can use. I really like Rebecca Campbell's decks. She has one that's called Work Your Light that I think is really cute. Like, the messages are just very empowering and make me feel really good when I give myself a reading with that deck. And she has very detailed interpretations of the cards too. So again, you don't have to know anything before jumping into it. You can just start where you are.
Nice. So what I'm hearing is like a couple different ways to approach self-reflection. We've got kind of the more like grounded, like earthy sort of approach, tangible, like something that might feel familiar. You can read, you can journal about it. But for those of us who like to get a little more, esoteric or kind of creative with our self-reflection, tarot or oracle decks can be a really nice mode for that.
Yeah,
I love that. It also like kind of brings something for every person to the table. You don't have to be just one or the other.
Yeah. I use all of those different methods just depending on how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Some days I just also want to sit and think about my thoughts and not necessarily even do something tangible like that. But if you are diving into a self-reflection practice and you've never done it before, then definitely using a medium like that is very helpful. But don't feel like you have to be stuck to one thing. You can explore many different options and play around with it, because you might not have that moment like right away where you're like, yeah, I love this, or it might not feel like it sticks right away. So yeah, you can have that creative element and just see what works for you.
Nice. That's awesome. And those are just a few to name,
Yeah, there's many others too.
Yeah. So cool. Well, I think that kind of covers everything for today then. That's just our little deep dive into self-reflection and what it is and how you can make it work for you. Anything else you want to share, Zoe?
I don't know, I just love self-reflection. This is like a topic I'm passionate about, especially, I guess one last thing I'll share is that this time of year I think is also really great for this, which is why it's our theme of the month in January. But winter, often things are slowing down, and I think especially that time after the holidays, it can feel like kind of dreary and weird, and so it's a good time to start exploring that practice, and maybe you get deeper into it in this season. Those are just my thoughts with it. I reflect more in the winter, I feel like.
It's a natural time. Things are quiet. We're not as like busy and buzzing with activity. So, yeah, absolutely. The season calls for it. So remember, the next time that you want to sit in self-reflection in any way, be kind to yourself. You deserve it, and that's it. We'll see you next time.